Oh,
I was going to say your coffee making skills are getting better, but it comes out of the machine, doesn't it? So
can't
really go wrong.
Can't improve on a machine.
No, as long as you push the right button.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, at least you're doing that now, because occasionally you push the wrong button, wouldn't you? I'd end up
I
with
know
all
you
sorts.
like cappuccino.
Yeah.
I know you're a cappuccino
Don't
fan.
get a choice, do I?
No, you don't.
Snake hips.
Snake hips. I was trying to do a bit of.
Laura's very lucky.
She's very lucky. Well, when we end up in La Manga and we're at the piano bar
4 or 5 beers deep.
and we're supposed to be judging, but we're actually out there doing it.
Yeah.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to a Sunday morning show. Good morning, Leicester.
Good morning, Dan. Morning,
How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Yeah. Difficult week. Yeah, but just really wanted to say thank you to everybody who have sent such lovely emails and messages on social media, and even on the comments on the last video we put out. Just means a lot, really. It's really sort of touching and stuff, and obviously it's a sad time, but I was lucky enough to have him in my life for 40 years. The people aren't always that lucky, and
you don't realise how many lives he's touched over the years until you read the comments that obviously you've had lots and lots of letters and lots of emails and things like that have come in. But even some of the stuff that I've read that people have messaged me,
100%.
In his life.
Oh, he had a great life.
Starting out with table tennis, getting into the racing, following on from that. I mean, it's been phenomenal, hasn't it?
I mean, he had heart attacks. He had 3 severe heart attacks in 1993. Yeah. When I was sort of 12 years old, and it was touch and go at that time. And he sort of battled through. I could have lost him then, so he did really well, and. I feel lucky more than anything. I obviously was really sad, sort of 3 or 4 days, but then I'd sort of been reading stuff that people have wrote and just memories of him, and we've talked today about him, and I had 40 great years, and now I'm going to try and make him proud. So.
Oh mate, you will do. Yeah. Absolutely right, you will. And I mean, it's only unfortunately when they go, and as you know, I lost my dad at a young age, and it's only when they go, it all comes flooding back to you as to, I've thought about my time with your dad growing up, and you don't realise how much they have an impact on your life until they're not there. Yeah. And it flooded back with so many memories of us growing up as kids. I mean, your dad bailed us out of a bit of trouble.
Quite often.
Do you know what I mean? We got into some serious trouble when we were a bit younger, and your dad was there to bail us out and get us through it, and taking us to tournaments and passing on quietly, whether he was doing it on purpose or whether it was a natural thing for him, which I believe it probably was, to pass on some of his experiences. I mean, I remember being in the car with you and your dad driving to junior events, and him talking to us, and it was just subtle things about, I don't know, things that you don't realise what he's saying at the time, but then it's stuff that he's learnt over the years in his game that he's subtly passing on to us in our game.
We were saying earlier, it's almost, I mean, he would have loved reading all those cards and what impact he had on people, and it's almost a shame that people don't have almost like a memorial or I know it sounds stupid, but almost like a celebration of your life before you actually die, so then you actually know how you affected people and what you mean to people. But I know he'd be looking down now, and he'd be sort of proud of what he's left behind with everything, and I honestly couldn't ask for better parents, really. My mum's brilliant, and she's had a difficult week, but she's trying to remain positive, and I just want to obviously if he's listening, just thank him for all he's done for me, really.
So growing up, your dad, obviously at a very young age, he was thrust into the limelight, wasn't he, of table tennis world. When table tennis, he made table tennis cool for lots of people.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really, table tennis wasn't in the sort of national spotlight, a bit like now, really. I mean, I couldn't name many international players, or, I mean, you don't see it on terrestrial TV. I mean, you see it occasionally on sort of Eurosport and Sky, but yeah, I think he sort of was the first, from what I gather. I mean, I don't know, and I might be speaking slightly out of turn, but from what some of the old players have told me and people that have wrote to me, he sort of put it into the sort of into the limelight, really, and help make table tennis sort of a well-known sport. I mean, he did. Yeah.
Because it was because I mean I've read some messages from people that, you know, growing up playing table tennis, they would, as kids, they would pretend that they were your dad.
Yeah.
You know, when we would hold a putt, pretending we're like Nick Faldo or Tiger Woods, maybe later on, or Sergio Garcia or whatever. You know, people were playing table tennis as kids because it was probably an accessible game back in those days. It's amazing to think that, isn't it? That someone can have such an impact that you, obviously your dad and I knew really closely.
I mean, he packed a lot into his 74 years on the planet, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he'd done so much. And,
so he won the British Championships.
Yeah, he's still as far as I'm aware, he's still the youngest ever winner of the British British Championship, which was when he was 15 years old, and he'd only been playing table tennis for 3 years before he'd won it. Right. Went on to win it 5 times, and then obviously he's gone on to then do horse racing and sort of get to the top of that sort of game with Martin in sort of the 90s when they were sort of Martin was champion, jumps trainer for sort of 10 or 11, maybe 12, 13 years in a row. So yeah, he's done really well. Got to top in both sports and and
got to interact with some amazing people as well.
Oh yeah, I mean he's really good friends with Rod Stewart. Yeah. There's a couple of pictures of him with Rod a couple of years ago at Cheltenham Festival. Harry Redknapp's one of his friends.
Well, we went to football with Harry, didn't we?
Yeah, when he was manager of West Ham.
Sat with him down at Plymouth.
Yeah. And obviously Martin as well. He's done really well, but you know, Tony McCoy, the jockey, he's been really lucky and.
Just with Podrick Harrington. Or
David Howley met as well. Yeah, he just had a really good life, and he lived it to the full. So but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, you know, there's not a lot you can say, is there?
No.
It's been a tough week, and
I've done enough sort of grieving. So it's nice to now, read some nice stuff, and life does go on, doesn't it? And I'll never forget him. I've got like his thing in my pocket. I've got his necklace in my pocket, and I'll keep that on me for a while.
Well, I've been busy.
You have.
I have been busy. I've ripped the shop apart.
I've noticed.
I'm going to need your help at some stage.
I'll be back next week helping you out.
To help me out, get it back to rest.
No, you've done a good job.
So the normal way it works here at the Pro Shop is that I generally come in and make a mess, and then Lester has to come in and help me clear it up. So
there's a famous occasion where I was changing the shop around, and I spent about 14-15 hours. I think Dan was away doing something before we were filming and doing stuff like that, but maybe it was your day off or something. I changed the whole shop around. I came in the day after because it was my day off, and the shop was back to the way it was originally.
Don't know what happened there.
So we wasted about 30 hours putting the shop back to where it was. But no, it does look good. To be fair, new stock's coming in, isn't it?
New stock's coming in, so it look quite good. But whilst it is literally tomorrow, golf starts in England for the 3rd time of lockdown, coming out of lockdown. I'm not sure. I can't keep up with it all now.
No.
But hopefully, fingers crossed, this is the last time, and hopefully golf will just boom as we come back, which I expect it will.
It did the last time, didn't it? So
it did. Yeah, it really did. And I've already got things booked in for fittings and stuff like that. So we've got quite a lot coming up. However, this week I decided to go out and have a catch up with Brooksy, our course manager Jason, to see what he's been up to, because ultimately we've got to get the golf course ready.
Yeah.
So I thought now we'd take us over to Brooksy and have a catch up with him and see how the golf course is faring up for our restart of golf. Jason, before we get out onto the golf course, I want to sort of just talk about pins, because obviously COVID, we called them COVID pins, haven't we?
Yeah.
But what have you done? I mean, this is our flag that we've got here that we use out on the golf course at the moment, and you've got a material that you've put in the bottom of the bottom of the flag. What is this, and why did you come up with this idea?
Yeah, it's really cheap. It's all expense spared with that. But it's just when the first lockdown ended and suddenly the new rules were in place, no contact golf.
Yeah.
There was lots of gadgets and setups had been brought out to try and stop people having to put their hand in the hole, wasn't there?
Yeah. Touch flags, all of those things.
Yeah, there was things you lift with your putter head, or you, I don't know what else there was, but there was definitely things. And they just looked to me. They're very expensive, and at the time we didn't know how long
are we going to be in place for.
Was it quite a big investment to undertake to put them in place, but also just sort of it changed the dynamics of golf a little bit too much to my liking. Suddenly those pins were a little bit fatter. I saw ones which had a bit of wire on them, and you had to make sure that the wire was around the far side before you putted, just in case it deflected off the wire. So this is nice and simple. You don't have the problems with a disc getting in the way of maybe a high-flighted chip shot coming down close to the pin and getting deflected again. So we didn't overcomplicate it. We went with this. It's worked okay, I think.
So what's the future then?
With having pins which nobody could touch, it didn't half speed up play.
I bet it did.
Because the new rule that came in where you didn't have to have the pin attended was supposed to speed up play, but then you had people who wanted it back in to hole out from 3 foot, and others wanted it out from 10 foot, and it just was toing and froing. But with one rule for everybody, you just had to leave it alone. It just made it quite simple, really.
And is that possibly the answer moving forward?
Could be.
Could well be, couldn't it?
Yeah.
So one of the things that really annoyed me with the COVID pins and not being able to touch them and things like that was when you had and I've brought a different one out here, but you had the metal ones, and I've got an expensive putter, and I didn't want to damage my putter, so I was trying to use my foot to bring it up and all of those things, and eventually I gave up and I would just put my hand in the hole and drag it out, because I just didn't, because the metal ones, you put your putter down and drag it up, and then it leaves a mark on your putter, and for someone that had an expensive putter, I didn't want to have that. I'm a bit OCD in that. But this is one that's been given to me, which from a golf club up the road that we at Churston Golf Club, this is what they use, which is kind of like potentially long term an answer for what we could be doing with this. It's built. They've refined it a little bit, and they've built it. They've screwed this in the bottom of the flag, but being it plastic, it's going to, my putter won't have a problem with that.
Sure.
And also the damage that's done to cups, and I'd ask you this one, the damage that's done to cups with people going in with the end of their putters to scoop a ball out, or on the suckers on the end of their putters.
Yeah, any sort of inaccuracy with their jabbing, that's the whole,
jabbing the hole.
That's the whole done for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does this one work?
Well, that looks better because at least the thickness of the stem has been overcome now. They've gone thinner with the metal, so that kept that one traditional size. So the ball has a chance to go in when it hits it rather than being deflected out. I would still think about it's almost eliminated the potential.
You're talking about the slam dunk.
That's not obviously happening too often, but
it does happen.
Yeah, it does happen. Or you're hitting a shot which is going to land close to the pin, and it skims the flag. It hits that and disappears far away. You could argue it's rubber the green, but it wasn't rubber the green maybe a couple of years ago. That wouldn't have been in place. So, but if past June the 21st and you're allowed to touch the pins, potentially you could remove this bit totally and leave that bit at the bottom, and just
so you pull the flag out, and then the ball pops out,
falls out to the ground, and then at least they can pick it up from there.
Because you got to think, we've got Torquay, we've got average age of around 65, 67 years old is I think where we're at. A lot of guys are struggling to get down to get that golf ball out of the hole.
They don't get back up.
So having something like this device, COVID pin, actually has worked really quite well for a lot of people.
Yeah, I suppose in hindsight, we've had those on the bottom of putting cups for years.
On the putting green.
Why has it never sort of transposed itself across to the main greens?
Does it do much damage? Would you say that would do much damage if it came out of the hole and chucked onto the ground? These don't really do too much damage.
Yeah, I guess it could do. Yeah. In theory they should be laying it down gently, but we both know that doesn't always occur. I guess that could be the only consideration. As you're dropping it, leaving a little bit of a line, but possibly could be the future moving forward. It's just like you say, it just seems to be more and more commonplace that people have something to get the ball out of the hole.
Scoop it out with.
Either they're dipping their putter in or they're turning the handle around and got the grabber. At least if you get the ball out of the hole, they can kind of play around with it away from the hole to get it up in their pocket again.
Right, enough about flags. Let's get out onto the golf course.
Okay.
Bit of a mess.
It is. It's
front of the second hole.
Yeah.
What's gone on here then?
So it's twofold really. We've got the leather jacket issue, which we've talked about previously.
Which we had a big problem on a fairway further up on the 15th, 16th coming down there,
last year on the 16th, lost the whole fairway last year, just down to that. So they're in the ground, and then you've got the birds going after them as a food source. So the birds are ripping all the ground up, looking for the grubs as a food source. They're eating underneath, birds are eating on top, so it's sort of double whammy really. And it's one of those things these days is really hard to control.
So you used to spray for these, didn't you? So you don't have that chemical anymore?
No, ironically, I mean when the chemical was available, chlorpyrifos, it wasn't one we ever used. You know, it is a nasty chemical, and it does one of those ones you'd have to fully kit up when you're using with your PPE.
Right.
But never had a problem. But since it's been banned, which is I think about 3 or 4 years now, there's nothing really that effective to spray against these grubs. So, you know, we'll preventatively spray the greens with a different chemical now called acetylprin, which is really expensive. You know, you're looking at £750 per application in the UK. If you put it down at the rate the Americans would put it down at, it'd probably cost you £1,500, because our stated rate is actually half the rate of what America would use it at as well. So, you know, it's not, if you use it legally, it's not that effective of what you are trying to control. But you know, you're doing it because your greens are the most important part. So you know, you can't afford to spray that everywhere because it's so expensive. The old chemical was maybe only £50 to spray your greens. The big difference. So we're a bit limited to where you can use it.
So do we see this as a big problem moving forward long term?
This is a huge problem for greenkeeping moving forward, yeah. In the UK, where it's, you know, in Europe, they don't have the pesticides available either, so...
I mean, this is dead. This grass
is dead, yeah. This is, you know, this is
a
the reason we haven't done...
job, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, this is the reason we haven't done much about it, because, you know, it is dead. So, you know, we'll once it's fully dead, we'll get it all tidied up and reseeded and hopefully repaired. But yeah, it's the worst. This is the worst bit on the course. Fortunately, it's not many areas like this, but yeah, one too many, that's for sure.
What gadget you got up there then?
So I've got a wildlife camera. It's just tucked
in there,
hidden behind the tree, pointing at this hole. I don't know what was in it actually. So just linked up to my phone with the footage off the camera, and it turns out it's a badger.
Badger
Hole, yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, it's not good. It's nearly as bad as your leather jacket.
Yeah, what else do we have here? We've got moles. We've got moles eating the place alive as well. We've got golfers to come back next week now, haven't we? As well, hacking the place to pieces.
More damage.
Yeah.
So what's going on this fairway then? And I've seen this on some of the greens as well.
Yeah. This is crows. This is hungry crows.
Hungry crows looking for what?
Looking for probably leather jackets or worms.
Yeah.
Again, that's another chemical we lost, was worm control. So they were usually being suppressed.
Yeah.
Which would stop the worm casting in the winter months in the mud. That's suppression now. Then I guess there's more food for the birds, and we seem to have seen a massive increase in birds on the golf course, especially in lockdown. There's no golfers to deter them really.
Yeah.
So
in one way you've got the positives of like you've got more time or more time during the day to be able to do some work, but on the same scale is that the golfers actually help by keeping things like birds away.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, if you looked over to your right now, you can just see them camped there waiting for us to move, and they'll probably come back over again. It's yeah, I think, you know, the golf will help and get the birds off the golf course again, and it should slow down some of this damage that we're getting at the moment.
And how easy is this to recover? Because your fairways at the moment, I've got to say, are fantastic. Like, they are as good as I've seen them, certainly this time of year, considering the cold snap.
Yeah, that's the bonus of the no golf. That's meant, there's been no traffic on the fairways. They've come into the season in really good condition.
Yeah.
Apart from this one. This one's in not such a good condition, but yeah, this will recover quite quickly. It just needs a bit of divoting in effect, really, and some warmer weather.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of courses in the UK are suffering with at the moment. The spring has been pretty cold.
Yeah.
Even down here, where we're generally a lot milder, it has been cold. The recovery isn't there just yet. Our greens, when we look at those in a bit, you'll see they're just not quite recovered from the work we did, our aeration work in February. So I think that's where we need to sort of temper the expectations a little bit. It is still March. It is been cold. Some things will be better, like the fairways and the tees. Other things, the greens aren't quite there yet, and there is obviously this damage that we've sort of talked about today.
So how has it been, Jace, with the furloughing scheme, and do you think it's had a big effect on how you've been able to perform as a team?
Yeah, we went from 5 full-timers last year down to 4 from March. We had to make cuts, and then during the course of the season we were furloughing another member of staff quite often.
Yeah.
So at times we're running at 60% capacity, really. And it was okay. You could kind of cope, but I did make the sort of committee aware that there was going to be a knock-on effect. Certain things we were shortcutting, lots of corners being cut, which we'd start to see the knock-on effect down the line. But it was fortunate that lockdown came in a way of the winter, because that meant we could cope with the reduced numbers. We didn't have the pressure of trying to prepare a golf course on a daily basis for members. We could sort of just get the essential stuff done again. But moving forward, we do need to hope that we get back to proper numbers again.
And financially, have you seen an area of the club sort of said to you, you need to hold back on spending certain points that you would normally spend?
Well, I've seen that it's just they've asked me not to spend too much too soon. Normally I'd get a lot of my gear in for the season ahead, and they've just sort of said, can you just get in what you need essential for the next month until the cash flow starts to return, really, which is understandable.
Yeah.
So just got to sort of prioritise everything that I need to do, and we've done a lot of fertilising lately, which we need to get out there, get the things moving for the course, all the greens, tees, certain areas which needed something done to it. So yeah, it's not. We've been fairly lucky as a club. I think there's been some horror stories. Other clubs, haven't there, around the country, who just either folded or they've been running on such a shoestring that the condition of the course has suffered massively.
Yeah. Give me some positive news then, Jace.
Yeah, I feel like I need to. I feel like I've been a bit doom and gloom this morning. So positively, most things out here are pretty good, apart from the obviously animal damage and a bit slow start to some of the greens recovering. But we've got a beer garden being built.
Well, that is a positive.
Yeah, and we're taking up half of our existing putting green.
Yeah.
And turning it into so turning that far end, half of the putting green, into a beer garden. Right. So we've got that project to do this week.
And is that long term, or is that more just a short term process because the clubhouse will be closed but we can still serve?
Yeah, so we know from April 12th till May the 17th that we can only serve outdoors, and we've literally got space for 20-30 people up there, distance to be safely sat. So we're sacrificing half the putting green and already accommodate another 60 to 80 people on it.
Yeah.
And we'll see if it's proved popular. Then, as we talked about previously, we've got the new putting green being built.
Yeah. How's that coming on?
It's a bit slow. We said last time that it might be green by March, but not needing mowing until probably April. But it's still not quite there in full coverage yet. It's just so cold.
Yeah.
But it's coming along quite well. It's greened up.
And then you've got this nice new teeing area off the first as well.
Brand new first tee this year.
Yeah.
Whoever comes back on March 29th has the opening tee shot of the post-lockdown era will be the first person to tee off
the new tee.
It's new tee, yeah. So it's double the size. It's got drainage in it. It's flat.
So you've got some jobs done, haven't you? Even though
we've got a massive amount done in a short period of time. due to the fact that we didn't have to sort of set a golf course up on a daily basis for play.
Daily raking and all that sort of cutting and.
Yeah, we could just get straight on with everything that's we'd sort of started, and fortunately, you don't realise how long some of these things take at the time. You just sort of think we'll get it done in due course, but it took weeks and weeks of not having any golfers around us, and still took a while to get done.
Well, as always, it's nice to catch up with Brooksy.
He knows his stuff, doesn't he?
He does. In some ways, I got the sense that he was a little bit nervous because people have been off golf for so long, and now that they're coming back to golf, they expect the golf course to be immaculate. You think about Augusta is about to happen in a minute.
Different climates, though, isn't it?
Completely different.
Completely different. The conditions are different, and the budget's different, isn't it?
Fractionally. But when he's been working with 60% workforce because of the furloughing scheme and all of those sorts of things, it's been really hard.
Plus, you're going to get people with the sort of attitude, or no one's been on this golf course for 3 months. It should be a good condition. And
don't get me wrong, the fairways are, and I think that the fairways look so lush and beautiful. Yeah. Because they haven't had the traffic, they haven't had trolleys, they haven't had buggies, So I think for lots of you golfers out there that are coming back to golf in England, obviously we have come out of a bit of a bad winter. It was pretty wet for November, December, and then the golf course has to try and recover, and then we just haven't had the warmth to get the grasses growing, to make it perfect. Yeah. So when you go out and play on Monday, tomorrow, when you go out and play,
please.
Yeah, just enjoy the walk, and don't worry, because your golf course will come back absolutely immaculate within a few weeks. It will be back to where you expect it to be by Augusta, hopefully, by the Masters.
Not long, is it?
No, it's not long now. So, but what's your take, lastly, on that? And we started off with it with Brooksy, but what's your take on the pins? Do you think we carry on? And we were having a chat about this off camera. Do you think that they could make it a permanent rule that, like you said, like the pin stays in? It would definitely. I think it would definitely quicken up play. Also, you mentioned that, but more for a hygiene point of view, anyway. Like we were saying about, because we haven't been in close contact with many people over the last sort of year, 18 months. I haven't had one cold or any illnesses, which. Normally, probably in a normal day, we probably get within close contact with a couple hundred people working in the shop. People come in, shake your hand, give you a hug and stuff. In the shops and stuff. So maybe just for a hygiene point of view, why not keep picking the pin out, and you're not having the contact of the pin, because if someone's got a cold, they rub it on the pin. The next group, someone might catch it. It just spreads, doesn't it? So maybe even for that sort of thinking, it might be quite a good idea. I mean, it doesn't. To start with, it used to bother me when people had the pin in. I couldn't get used to it now. I mean, the last few months I was playing. At least you know where you stand.
Yeah.
The flag stays in for everybody. At least you know where you stand with it. And you're not faffing about who needs what in and what. It just.
I can't work out whether it's an advantage having the pin in or out. I mean, I hold a few putts with the pin in and thought that was the answer, and then I missed a few. So
and the COVID pins, we haven't really found out, have we? Because the COVID pins have been jumpy. Some places we've been to, the cups are upside down, and sometimes it's like what Brooksy had.
It's all been different, isn't it? I think all different clubs.
I gotta say, the one that I showed Jason earlier is probably the best one that I've seen so far. And it'd be interesting. I'd like to hear what your clubs have done as well. I'd like to hear what you thought about the COVID pins. Have they been a bit makeshift like we've done at Torquay, or do you think they should be a permanent feature, possibly long term?
When I played in the county championships at the end of September, you had to, on each green, one person could remove the pin. Yeah. But by the side of every single green, there was like a disinfectant spray. So to go over, spray your hands, take the pin out, put the pin back and go and spray your hands straight after. But one person on each green. But I mean, I was as far as I was putting with a pin in. I was like,
can't be bothered.
Yeah, because you were doing it. And one of the lads who'd done it about 6 or 7 times, and my hands are starting to get sore. I was like, just leave the pin.
Well, and that's what we had. When I caddied for Paul at the Forest of Arden, you had to nominate a caddy on that particular hole who was going to deal with the flag. Yeah. And then you'd have your sanitizer in your bib and do it from there. And it worked.
Worked quite well.
It worked quite well, yeah. So, I don't know, things long term, it might be a good thing to have something a bit more permanent. Saves the old boys picking out bending down to pick up the golf ball as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, it might need a bit of tweaking and a bit of modifying, flag, maybe, but but no, certainly. I was going to ask you something as well. It's a little bit different to when we've got the Masters coming up. You mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
What do you think about having a major championship as a match play event? Because people have asked me in the past, and it's been quite a topic at the moment in world golf, is saying that. Because obviously last week they had the World Match Play on the World Play event.
Well, I watched the tiny
Why
bit
not
of that,
make it? I mean, most sports they do a lot of match play. I mean, as an amateur golfer, I play quite a lot of knockouts during the year. Why don't they have a match play event that's for a major?
It is amazing to think that if you think about the two biggest events, well, what I would think about the two biggest events as amateur golfers, the US Amateur and probably the British Amateur. And the reason I say those are the two biggest because those actually get you major spots.
Yeah,
I think there's one out in Asia that allows that as well, maybe, or Australian Amateur maybe. But both the British, there's a qualifying to get into the British, and there's a qualifying to get into the US.
Yeah.
But then they're match play.
Yeah.
They're match play through, and then they're the majors. They are the majors.
4 rounds of stroke play with a cut, are they? Or 2 rounds of a cut.
So I agree. I think there should be, considering it's what you pretty much play your whole golf as an amateur in. A lot of
I definitely think it would be worth considering. Maybe if they were going to add a 5th major at some stage, which I would like to obviously see either in Europe or maybe in Australia, different continent rather than in America, because they've got 3 of the 4, haven't they? Maybe make it a match play event. Don't even have it seeded. Draw it out like the FA Cup and.
I like the idea of it.
And it'd be quite nice to have a final where you watch it thinking they're playing for a major championship.
I like the idea of it. I think it's a good thing.
The style of golf's different, isn't it? It'd be more attacking, maybe more birdies.
And I think you'd find a lot more random winners because you only have to look at how McIlroy got smashed by Ian Poulter. Yeah. And I'm not saying Ian Poulter, he's just a fantastic match player, isn't he? And Bob McIntyre finished all square against Dustin Johnson.
He should have beaten him. Yeah, he could have beaten him, couldn't he?
World number 1.
Yeah.
So I think you'd start to get, because really in match play, anyone can kind of beat anyone on their day. You get 4 rounds of stroke play. That's very different to a match play.
100%.
So I love the idea of that.
It would, like you said, it would bring in people that wouldn't necessarily ever win a major, such as Poulter. I mean, he would be up there as. Maybe 10. If they'd have bought this in 10 years ago, he'd have been one of my favourites. You'd have been like, oh, I'll have I wouldn't have any money on him to win a major. But if 10 years ago it was a match play, you'd be like, oh,
all day.
And he's got a chance, hasn't he?
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. I definitely think maybe we should put that into the RNA. See what they should say. We've had an idea on the Sunday show.
Who are you?
Pardon? Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our Sunday morning show. Yep. Thanks for sharing some of your mind.
Thank you for listening, and again, thanks to everybody for everything they've sent in, and means a lot.
Right, everybody, have a fantastic week. If you're coming back to golf this week, I hope you enjoy yourselves, and we'll look forward to catching up with you.
Spend some money in the pro shops as well, because a lot of pros, we're lucky enough that we've got another income with a bit of the YouTube and stuff like that. So make sure you go and see your local pro and spend a few quid with him, because he's struggled for the last few months.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we'll see you next Sunday.
See you next Sunday.